our work is difficult. It requires a lot of technical expertise. It's also very challenging, very emotional, but also it's very impactful. And basically, we want to make sure all the time that our web presence, particularly our website, reflects all of these things. So if I go back, this was the Warchild website in 2014 when I first started. It got a lot of love in the sector. A lot of people really, really loved the website because it was different. It wasn't what you kind of expect when you go to see a charity website. It was actually one of the things I liked when I was, interviewing for the job, and I was like, oh God, I'm going to get to look after that awesome website that looks so different to everyone else's. And then I would be going around for years, for the next couple of years, with people saying, oh my God, I love your website, I love your website. I grew to hate this website so quickly, you would not believe it. There were a number of issues with the website. One, there are no pictures on it. And if you're a charity, obviously one of the most impactful ways that you can communicate your mission is to have faces of people that you're helping. And if those people happen to be very small people, who are very often quite cute or possibly even traumatized, you want to get their pictures on there. Instead, we've gone for this kind of like cool graphic-y novel type thing, which meant that whenever I slapped a picture of an actual human being on there, it kind of, it jarred. It didn't quite work with the rest of the website. So I found that this was really, actually, from a communications point of view, was actually quite challenging for me. Secondly, it wasn't mobile friendly, which was such a big thing. And we're talking 2014. We were so behind the curve on this stuff. It had there was a separate mobile site, but it was so clunky, and it had its own CMS system, and it was an absolute nightmare to put it together. And also, as I found, this site was built in 2009, and it didn't really reflect the work that we were doing. And obviously, more than anything else, I guess your website needs to reflect the work you're doing. The images are children with AK-47s. That's not really what we do. Our work is about education. It's about child protection. Very small percentage of our work is working with what's commonly known as child soldiers, but yet it was the hero image on our website. So there were lots of reasons why I started to realize quite quickly that we needed to move away from this particular website. That hasn't moved. And excuse me. I'm only the head of digital. It doesn't mean I know how to use PowerPoint. So I convinced the powers that be, eventually, kind of like around 2016, that we needed to invest in a new website. This site was built in Drupal, and I had previously, in my job before that, I'd worked in Drupal. But at this point, I was kind of open to anything. We pitched it out to a number of agencies. A lot of them even said in their spec that they were going to build in different things, and we didn't necessarily see Drupal as a red line. However, once I started to break it down into, kind of like shortlisting the agencies, I kind of made a decision fairly early on that I wanted to continue using Drupal as our site. And there were 4 main reasons why I did that. One is compatibility. It's very easy, and I think a lot of people fall into this, and I've done it myself in the past, when you're rebuilding your website or redeveloping your website, that you only think of that website, and that is your entire focus, and you're just thinking, this is my thing. This is all just about making this the best looking website with user navigation. But websites do not exist in a vacuum. As we all know, I've worked in bespoke systems before that were just delivered to look cool or whatever, but nobody had thought about the other platforms that you need to work with, the other plugins, the other sites that you need. And I would walk up to our dev team on these like cool bespoke systems, and I'd say something really simple like, can we get like some sort of Facebook integration where we pull through our Facebook, feed onto the homepage, and the dev team would look at me like, oh no, like I've just sent them back down the mine, and they're going to have to be down there for hours. Like, how do I make this work? This is so difficult. And there were a number of systems that we were using at Warchild at the time. These were just 4, for example, that had Drupal compatibility at their core. And they're incredibly important to us. We've got a CRM system, we've got our e-marketing, payment processing, and our e-campaigning. these things where you like send petitions or send emails to politicians. And these were all other systems that weren't necessarily under the purview of my team. Other teams were using these systems. However, a lot of them had their own kind of like Drupal modules or plugins, or at least when we were talking to the dev teams at these places, we weren't speaking a different language. It was easy. They were like, what's your website built in? And we weren't like speaking something that they'd never heard of. They weren't going. So nobody had to learn anything new. And therefore the integration with all of these things was seamless. You might call me a bit of an old cynic, but having done this many times, when people talk about, cool websites, to me, the coolest websites are the ones that play nice with all the other children. It's not necessarily that they've got the coolest tech. It's how much of a pain in my backside is this going to be down the road? And if you've got that set up with other things to be as easy as possible, like anything else, then you're not spending a huge amount of money. And I'm sure all of us here, no matter where you're from, whether you're in the third sector, or the private sector, we all want to make more money, but I think probably even more so with charities. We have a lot more accountability in terms of where our funding comes from. We have to be much more transparent in terms of where we're spending our money. As the comms team in a charity, it's the hardest thing in the world is to try and convince, go up to someone and say, you don't want to spend your money educating children in Iraq. You want to spend your money on digital stuff because that's where the real mission is. So it's incredibly difficult to do that. The organization doesn't want to be spending money on digital, and I work for them, so I absolutely, subscribe to that view as well. But we want to be spending our money in Afghanistan, or we want to be spending our money in the Central African Republic. We don't want to be spending it on systems integration fixes that we haven't thought of at the beginning. So that was a really key thing for us, compatibility. Second one was ease of use. Again, because, a lot of the time at charities, the comms team quite often is the runt of the litter, and that's perfectly okay. That's how it should be. You should spend money on delivering your mission as best as possible. But we have about 60 or 70 staff, all of whom are keen to get their content on the website. In fact, I remember when we were doing, as part of the whole project of redoing the website, we did a kind of like internal stakeholder piece. So the agency that we selected to work with as CTI Digital came in, we did this whole internal stakeholders, where basically, to sum up what that was, it was 15 people from across the organization all got in the room and told me how their stuff should be on the homepage. And I was like, my thing has to be on the homepage. And I was like, well, I work in this thing, that has to be on the homepage, it has to be on the homepage. Everyone wants to get their thing on the website. And if you're talking 65 people, and then there's 3 digital staffs, myself and 2 other people, cowering the corner as this avalanche comes towards us on a daily basis. The easiest thing for us to do is to train other people up to use the system and empower people to do it themselves. We also have, a lot of our stuff that we have is, we have a lot of technical experts in the organization, technical in the sense of, understanding how the need for education in emergencies and understanding how we do child safeguarding properly. And frankly, it's just easier for me if they're putting their own content up there as best as possible, rather than me trying to interpret what they're trying to say to me. So we wanted to get other voices on the website. We need to train other people on the website. And that was a big piece for me. And I said, I probably, along with a lot of other people in this room, I didn't receive any training in Drupal, either on the Warchild website or the previous website. But it's fairly intuitive. It's quite easy. And I found by training up other people over the years that I pretty much always only have to train people once. We have used some other systems that I experimented with microsites and other things, and got a couple of WordPress sites kicking about and some other sites on Squarespace and other things. And just from my own experience, I found that with those other sites, I get people coming back to me far more often, kind of going, how do you do that thing again? Or I remember you showed me how to upload a picture, or I can't remember how to do that thing. Whereas in my own experience in the past, I show people how to do it once in Drupal, and then they're pretty much okay. And so that was a real key thing for us, that we could then empower people to do that, and it's just less of a kind of drain of resources on my team. And it's worked. There's some areas of the website now where, our HR team, who you wouldn't necessarily spring to mind as being, digital experts, but they wanted a whole section on the website that would just talk about how great it is to work for Warchild and what our policies are, and that's great, that's a great idea. Is it going to be top of my priority list? Not in a million years, you know. To be blunt, it just won't be, but it's top of their priority list. So if I can train them to do this and they can look after that, then great. And they're sitting there right now and they're putting all these pages together and they're putting videos up, and it's great. I mean, obviously I keep an eye on it, you know, it's, you know, let's be honest, I don't just let them get on and do all of it. Support. And for support, I think what I'm really talking about is flexibility. It's suited us, the flexibility that you get with Drupal, the flexibility that comes from the support. What I mean by that is, what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is that we're a much smaller charity than other people who exist in our space as an international charity. We don't have the budgets that other people do. We don't have the enormous comms teams that other people do. We have a number of issues with regard to how we tell our story, not least the fact that the people whose story we need to tell are in places we can't get to because they're in Yemen and they're children and they're in some housing complex that is getting bombed into rubble. So how do we go in there and tell their story? They're in Afghanistan. We can't just like rock up in Afghanistan with a film crew and start training and start getting their stories. So when we start thinking about how we tell our story and compete with some of those other agencies who are way bigger than us, we need to be flexible. We need to be creative. We need to think outside the box to overcome those challenges. And if you're going to do that, you kind of need the support under you. You know, it's that thing of the trapeze artist is only able to go because they've got the net under them. If the trapeze artist doesn't have the net under them, they're going to play it safe. They're going to play it safe all the time. But when you got the net under you, that's when you know you can really fly. And so our team kind of needs to come up with sometimes some crazy ideas or some different ways of looking at things. But I know that because there's this vast community underneath us, that whether I go to our agency with a big fat creative idea, that either our agency will be able to turn around to us, as has happened before, and go, yeah, there's a module for that. Somebody's already thought of that. Your big creative idea isn't that big an idea. Somebody else in the community had that a year ago and they've already built the thing, and that happens more often than not. And also, if not, there probably is somebody out there who will build it for us. So it gives us that support gives us the opportunity to be as flexible as possible. And therefore I can give my team the kind of creativity that they want. So that was really important for us. And the last thing that was really important for me was future-proofing, or I say this to my team a lot. It's what I call the what if I get hit by a bus test, or what if the agency that you're relying on to do all your dev support goes into liquidation tomorrow and all their staff are completely laid off. Very early on in the project of the old website, one of the guys at CTI turned around to me and said, your back end is an absolute mess. When we looked under the bonnet, we couldn't find things and files were stored here. And I have to say that was probably one of the least surprising things that anyone said to me throughout that entire project, because it's kind of how it goes sometimes with charities. You have a website and you don't have kind of in-house support. You don't have in-house dev. So what you do is you spend years and years getting the cheapest freelancer or somebody who'll just come in and do the thing for you. And you have years and years of people coming in with very little oversight, just adding bits, putting bits on it, putting bits here, putting bits there, with no real oversight or governance, and a kind of Christmas tree effect. And what you end up with is something that just doesn't make a lot of sense to anyone who's looking at it. I'm sure we've all had jobs in our life where you come in, you get your handover notes, and then you probably spend the next 3 or 4 months just trying to unpick the thinking of the person that came before you, where you're just kind of looking at things going, why did they do it like that? And why have they put those files there? Why did she do it that way? That's really weird. And so that was kind of what the back end of our site looked like. And so one of the things that we wanted to get sorted out back there was to have some proper governance, to make sure that it was built according to general acceptable standards, and that we would be able to look after and maintain it in a way that not only if our agency disappeared tomorrow. But if I just sack them all off tomorrow, I'm not going to do that in case anyone in the room. But if I did, could somebody else just walk in and go, yeah, I understand that, I know where that is. And that gives you, that future-proofing gives you continuity. And as we all know, continuity saves you time, and time saves you money. So there were the 4 main reasons that when I was looking at this, I thought the compatibility, the ease of use, the support network, and the future-proofing that you can get by having a system that, as I said, makes sense to most other people that you can show. So that was a major factor in why we decided to go with Drupal. And and now we have a website that is much more, about images, about videos, about pictures, about integrations. This is actually a video GIF that's on the homepage of the website. This little guy's face is my favorite thing on the whole site. It's absolutely adorable, and it's like this. As I said, this is a video, and he's just like the whole time. It's absolutely brilliant. But it's such a nice thing, and it's like you get to see, we get to show the children that are. We see images of war on television all the time, and usually if you see an image of a child in a war zone, they're probably being pulled out of rubble, or somebody's carrying them in their arms and they're racing towards an ambulance. And there's an element of, not dehumanization, but that child has a story behind them, and that child has hopes and dreams and fears like any other children. But we kind of don't see that. We just see them as being a kind of collateral damage of a war. And it was really important for us to put the children at the heart of the website, and by building it the way we have and giving it the flexibility we have, we've been able to do that. You don't go very far now on our website without having a child looking right back at you, without seeing a child's face somewhere, and that's hugely important for us. And it's embedded in the core of the site now. It's mobile compatible, which basically means Dave gets to sleep now, because that was the thing that for years would just keep me up. I was like, oh my goodness, every time I'd be out and about, something had happened, I'd quickly check the website on my phone, and I'd be like, no, it looks so bad, I can't make it work. So now it's compatible, it's completely responsive, and that is just, as I said, Dave gets to sleep now. And also what it does is it gives us the freedom to just try and be a bit flexible in other ways. Barney was talking about social media content and all the other spaces, and obviously we're also in a lot of those spaces as well. But sometimes then we do also try and bring that content back onto the site. So that means you've got to kind of think about, is it going to be compatible with the rest of the website? But if we've got a website that is, creative and a bit different and has that flexibility built in, that means that when we're doing things like campaigning videos or like issue videos, that it's okay if our creative ideas are a bit off the wall, because it won't look weird if we decide to pull it back onto the website. So actually, it's been a real help in terms of us just thinking outside the box a bit, in terms of, as I was saying, overcoming the challenges we have of the fact that we need to find different ways of telling the stories of the children that we deal with, because they're so far away and they're in such dangerous places. So this was a video that we've made quite recently, which I'm basically just going to shamelessly plug now by showing you all it. And also because it's nice when you come to things and you just like don't have to listen to people speak. You just sit back and watch a video. So I'm just going to whack this on now. But again, this was us thinking outside the box. But there was one of the reasons that we felt we were able to do that was the comfort of knowing that we can tackle things in a different way, but that it'll still sit quite nicely on the website. And this is a screenshot from the homepage of our website, and it's weird because it's about a robot, but it doesn't seem out of place in the grand scheme of things. So I'll just hopefully make this play now.
I've been acting awful tough lately, smoking a lot of cigarettes lately, but inside, you're just a little baby. Oh, it's okay to say you got a weak spot. You don't always have to be on top. Better to be hated than love for what you're not. You're vulnerable, you're vulnerable.
So we put that out about 5 weeks ago, and that now, you know, the kind of the campaign hub sits on the website, which is great because, you know, that video's had about 1.5 million views in the last 4 or 5 weeks, and it's driving loads and loads of traffic to the website. And what's really nice is, you know, having a website that I'm fairly confident is going to, you know, stand up to that, and that people are going to have a good user experience, and we're going to be able to take people through properly. And that is why we rebuilt our site in Drupal. And that is it from me. Okay.